In a previous video, we talked about how we could take any generic quadratic formula, ax squared, or quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and get a solution of x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, like that. Okay? So I just want to walk you through how to solve problems using the quadratic formula. It's actually almost desperately straightforward. It's really kind of just a situation of what we call plug and check. Just plug in the numbers, check through it, and you have your answer. That doesn't mean you can turn off your brain for it, but at least it's somewhat helpful. So in general, pretend you have something like this. Say I have, I don't know, it's a big number, 2x squared plus, I'm going to give you a pretty one to start out with. Let's say, I'm going to give you, minus 2x minus 4 equals 0. That should be pretty good, right? I don't know. Let me give you something else that's prettier. Let me give you something actually extremely straightforward. Okay, how about something that we could solve without the quadratic formula? So I have x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Okay. You should be able to solve this already using the basically reverse of the FOIL method. You could factor it out and say, okay, they're both pluses. That's x plus and x plus. Over here on the right, one would be plus 2 and one would be plus 1. My outer plus x, inner plus 2x, that's going to give me my plus 3x. Okay. So you can solve this, and you would say, well, that means either x plus 2 is 0, or x plus 1 is 0. Then you'd come along and do this, and hopefully, if you're trying to deal with a quadratic equation, doing this factoring is kind of second nature to you. Okay? So you have two solutions. X equals negative 2, and x equals negative 1. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and delete everything that I just wrote, because I want to get it out of the way. But I want to show you that we're actually going to get the right answer with the quadratic formula. Okay, so remember that we did this, and you can always come back and review the video, or rewind the video if you really want to see it again, but in any case, now it's gone. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to remember my generic formula, ax squared plus bx plus c. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so looking at this, I can see, okay, well, based on the pattern, b is going to be 3 and c is going to be 2. You might have a little bit of pause on thinking about what a is, but remember that the coefficient of x squared here is just 1. So a is going to be 1. Okay? Now it's a fairly simple, and I don't mean simple as in simple like I can read my grocery list, but simple as in it's simpler than brain surgery. Of plugging it in, process of plugging it in and going to town. So I have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a times c all over 2 times a. b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay? Now I'm going to simplify it. So I've got negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 8 over 2. So negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 1, which is, the square root of 1 is just 1 over 2. Now I have a plus or minus, so I can write it out. It's either going to be minus 3 plus 1 over 2, or minus 3 minus 1 over 2, right? The plus side or the minus side. So I have minus 2 over 2, which is negative 1, or minus 4 over 2, which is negative 2. You'll notice that I got the exact same answer here as I did when I factored, which should be a relief, because quite frankly, if we'd gotten a different answer, that would have been terrifying and means that the basis of most algebra is bad. So this is actually a really good sign. And really, that's all there is to it. all being a very broad, generally useless word, but that is all there is to it, is plugging and checking. Now, how they make these problems more complicated is they'll do things like, let's throw in a negative sign. So let's say we have x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so we need to remember a generic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's my a, my b, and my c. Now hopefully I remember that a is 1. Now here's what's important. B here is actually negative 1, right? Because it's minus 1 times x. And then c is also going to be negative. It's going to be negative 2, right? Because our generic formula had all plus signs. So if we have a minus sign, we need to take account of that. Okay, so now I plug them in. This is where problems start to happen, is people will plug in and they'll say, oh, it's already minus, I'm not going to do anything to it. No, it's minus b, so minus a negative 1. That's going to give us a positive 1. So you want to be really careful with your parentheses here. Same thing here. B squared, that whole thing, negative 1, the entirety negative 1 is squared. Then minus 4 times a times c. Be sure and put that in parentheses as well so you don't do something silly like subtract it. And that's all over 2a. So we have 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 plus h over 2. 1 plus or minus the square root of 9 over 2. So 1 plus or minus 3 over 2. Now that gives us two options. We have 1 plus 3 over 2 or 1 minus 3 over 2. So I have 4 over 2, which is 2, or negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So again, we probably could have factored this out and solved the problem, the equation, but you know, it's still good. It's good to give you a couple of problems to practice with that aren't going to give you ugly answers, because most of them, quite frankly, are. So let's take a look at some of those examples. Alright, say we had something more along the lines of, I don't know, x squared minus 7x plus 9 equals 0. So I always want to start off by writing this out, because the more we write it out, the more likely it is we'll remember it. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, a, b, and c. A is 1, b is, check it, negative 7, c is 9. I'm going to plug these puppies in. Negative, negative 7. So minus a minus 7. Plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, like that. So I've got positive 7 plus or minus the square root of 49 minus 36 over 2. Okay. 49 minus 36, is that 13? Yeah, okay. So this is where it gets ugly. 7 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Yay! Really, there's not a ton that we can do with this. We could say 7 plus root 13 over 2, or 7 minus root 13 over 2. And these are actually our final answers. Something else that can happen is you can actually get a negative number under the square root sign. And since I haven't really talked about imaginary numbers, I'm not going to get into that, but we will get into it when we talk about finding different types of solutions that you can have, and when we're talking about the discriminant. But for the moment, I'm just going to stick with positive numbers under the square root sign. Okay. So while we're looking at this, actually, before I forget, what you don't want to do is turn a good answer into a bad answer. So, for example, say I had a different answer that had simplified down to oh, I don't know, 6 plus the square root of 8 over 2, and then 6 minus the square root of 8 over 2. Let me just write it like this, 6 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. Okay, now, remember that you can simplify the square root of 8 as 4 times 2, right? 6 plus, so that's going to give you 2 root 2 over 2. Remember now, if you can factor it out, you can cross it out. And on the top, we have a common factor of 2. If I factor out a 2, I'll have 3 plus or minus square root of 2 on the top. With the 2 on the bottom now, what that's going to allow me to do is cross those 2's out and get 3 plus or minus the square root of 2. This is important because most, especially if you're doing this on software, and teachers in general, are going to count this wrong, but this will be correct, okay? So, I actually told you that because I don't want you to get confused, but the idea is that you're going to want to take an answer and you're going to want to simplify it to get something pretty, okay? So don't fail to finish a problem so that you don't get full credit for it. So that's one thing that can go wrong. Similarly, don't take a perfectly fine answer and ruin it by doing something dumb. Remember, I can't pull the 2 out of the top, because if I pull the 2 out of the top, I would have something stupid here. So I can't cross out the 2. So since I can't pull a 2 out of the second term, I actually don't do anything, and this is considered a final answer. So that's a final answer, and that's a final answer. Okay? So just like you don't want to leave this like this to get it wrong, you don't want to do anything to this and ruin it. So to put the minus sign there. Basically going along that line. So do make sure that you simplify any irrationals, so square roots of 8, square root of 19, or I guess 19, square root of 20 or something like that. Make sure you do simplify those the best you can to see if anything else will cancel out. But don't overdo canceling things out to get bad answers. Now, a couple of other things they can do to make things miserable for you is they can give you things in the wrong order. So, say I could give you something like, oh, I don't know. Let's see. I could give you something like this. Say x, I could give you 7x equals negative x squared minus 12, or something like that. Don't make life hard on yourself. Don't try to figure out what's A, what's B, what's C. Get everything to one side of the equation. I don't like negative numbers, so I'm actually going to make everything added and move things over. So that's going to end up with x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Now, actually, I hope so. No, actually, this is not a very good answer. Oh, wait, actually, it's fine. I'm freaking out now. So I have A here. I have A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 7, C is 12. So now you're just literally going to plug in this, and I'll work through it with you. So negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So actually now's a great opportunity. You should pause the video, work through this, see if you can get the same answer that I do, okay? You should actually get a pretty nice answer. So assuming you've done that, let's go ahead and minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2 times A. Okay, so I've got negative 7 plus or minus square root of 49, and 4 times 12 is 48 over 2. So minus 7 plus or minus the square root of 1, which is basically 1, not basically, but it is 1. So I have two solutions. I have this, or the minus part. So I've got minus 6 over 2, which is negative 3, or minus 8 over 2, which is negative 4. So I have two solutions. Now, you could assume, honestly, that if you get something like this, you will, that's what I'm looking for. You probably could have factored this out by hand, but I'm just kind of showing you examples that don't have really ugly answers, because it doesn't seem nice. You'll get plenty of those later. Okay. So I'll just give you one more to kind of give you a little bit of practice with it, just to see how it works. So let's go with x plus 1 squared is equal to negative 2x. Alright, so don't freak out. The whole purpose of doing this, remember, is just to take a problem that you don't know how to solve and turn into something you do know how to solve. So looking at this, you might say, okay, well, I'm just going to go and multiply everything out and see if I can get this little quadratic formula equation thingy format and see what happens. Okay? So your first step is to actually multiply out x plus 1 quantity squared. So I'm going to tell you that. Now I'd like you to pause the video, try to work through this problem, and see if you can get it going. Or if you get stuck, come back, watch a little bit till you get back on track, then pause it again, go try to work it. Okay? This is how you're going to know for sure that you're actually learning the material and not just kind of watching arbitrarily. So assuming you've done that, first, outer, inner, last, ka-chomp. So I've got this. So now I want to move everything to one side. Alright, now I have A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 4, C is 1. So I've got an answer is negative B plus or minus the square root of E squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So I've got negative 4 plus or minus the square root 16 minus 4 over 2. So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 12 over 2. So this is good because this is an example of something I was talking about earlier. You want to make sure that you don't stop too early to simplify a problem that you can make prettier. So we know the square root of 12 is 4 times 3. Or 12 is 4 times 3. So I've got 2 root 3 over 2. Now before I go too crazy crossing things out left and right, I want to go through here and I want to remember that if I can't factor it out, I can't cross it out. So I need to know what happens if I pull out a 2. What do I get on the top? I get a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. At which point I'll say, okay, good, that means my 2's are going to cancel. I'll have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. And depending on what, especially if you're doing this online, what kind of program, sometimes I want you to actually list them out. But aside from that, you've got yourself some fine solutions.